Okay, something seems to be wrong with the connection, so wait for him to reconnect and, start out sharing his thoughts. But the government of the U.S. has repatriated no less than $52.88 million linked to the former Petroleum Resources Minister, Diziani Alison Nweke. Now, these funds were said to be from the forfeiture of the Galactica assets linked to her and her associates. The U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Richard Miles Jr., led a delegation to sign the asset return agreement at the Federal Ministry of Justice headquarters in Abuja on Friday. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, who signed the agreement on behalf of the federal government, noted that the development was a significant affirmation of the President's resolve to build a Nigeria free from the shackles of corruption. Now, he added that while the event signified the culmination of efforts by stakeholders to return forfeited assets to Nigeria, it was also a testament to ensure available resources were devoted to the socio-economic development of the country. And this recovered fund would allegedly be used on rural electrification. Means it's been put
Recording in
to
progress.
that specific project to ensure that Nigerians can see the proceeds or the actions where these funds are being put into. And it just makes us wonder. We've had the Abacha loot. If you asked right now, off the top of your head, can you recall one thing that those funds, when repatriated, were used for? Are we able to keep track and give an account as to what these monies are being used for? Would we see a change with this being made public? Henceforth, whatever loots are being returned back to the government, Nigerians can ask the right questions and ensure that they are used for the right reasons. Are you in support of these funds being used for the reason that has been given? Who is going to give a breakdown to ensure that every penny is put into the reason for which? And what decides, the project that the funds are used for is
Right.
also another concern. But we'll have a conversation on this right now and also get your thoughts.
Yeah, there's been, conversations back and forth about, what the funds will be used for, projects that should be used for. I remember a couple of years ago when the U.S. repatriated, was it $85 million? I would have to confirm the exact figures to Nigeria. It was based on an agreement that the monies were going to be used for certain projects in Nigeria, one of which was the second Niger Bridge, and that has been ongoing. However, according to reports, there's been a bit of a challenge with the project so far, and there were allegations that some of the funds have not been used for the purpose for which they've been earmarked for. So there's been conversations around repatriation of looted funds and whether or not these funds that were looted and have been brought back into the country will not be looted again, a reloot, seeing a reloot of, the funds that have been brought into the country. And there's also been a question of if these monies are coming in and they're coming in such volume, why then do we need to see the Nigerian budgets, at such a high rate as usual when there are already funds coming in from looted funds? We have the one for the Diziani funds that were repatriated back to Nigeria, and there was also a tranche that was sent in from the former governor of Delta State, James Ibori. The funds were also sent back to Nigeria some years ago. I have to check the exact date. And then of course the Abacha loot. So if we have these monies coming in tranches and they're earmarked for certain infrastructural developments or projects in Nigeria, why have these? What has been the challenge so far in seeing the completion of these projects if the funds are not the problem?
Well, here's something. In 2018, when we got a tranche, about $5 billion Abacha loot, not 5 billion, beg your pardon, 23 so different tranches have come through. So first, we had the $23 million Abacha loot, which Serap wrote the president asking to see a breakdown of that particular loot. And there was the one where the loot was meant to be given to poor Nigerians, in quote. And the distribution was to start by the government, and it was about $300 million, approximately 228 million pounds, which was returned by the Swiss authorities. And the money which was taken in the 90s was said to be given to around 300,000 households, which at the time they were going to get $14 a month. How many people got that? Did that even happen or play out? After a while, the force, the frenzy around getting a share, because the constant narrative you would hear when these funds are repatriated or brought back into the country would be, oh, share it amongst Nigerians. Everybody needs to get a share of
the national cake.
Exactly. But after a while, nothing is heard about it, and it's just as though everybody has moved on from that particular situation. So, well, I'm hoping, a lot of stakeholders are hoping that there will be a follow-through. But then the concern is, how are these projects determined? Who determines what is priority over the other? We're hoping our guests will help us understand this and, we're able to reach a conclusion.
So we're rejoined by our guest, Professor Kenneth Nweke. Thank you so much for making the time to be here, Professor. Good to have you.
Happy New Year once again.
Happy New Year. Good to have you be a part of the conversation. So let's get right into it. How would you rate previous efforts to repatriate looted funds back to the country? And how has this shaped Nigeria's governance and international relations? Can you hear me?
Can you repeat yourself?
Yes, I can. I asked you how previous efforts to repatriate looted funds have shaped Nigeria's governance and international relations, and what you think about this recent repatriation, if it has in any way shown that the government is, after those who are looting the treasury and fighting against corruption.
I don't see that. Because it is a matter of the policy of different countries of the world, like the US in repatriation, so to say, of looted funds. It's not about the deliberate effort of government of Nigeria or successive governments efforts in fighting corruption that have made this to happen. So it is because these funds have been there over time. You remember Abacha looted funds for years and all of those. And for me, it's not about returning the funds. Yes, like you rightly pointed out, funds had been returned to the country in the past. And one would want to ask, where were these funds used? Of course, if they get back into the budget, so to say, one way or the other, you will not feel the import of the returned loot directly as a country or a people, but at the level of budgeting, of course, the state, I'm talking about the country now, would understand the import of where that money is coming in, to help cushion the effects of what we are going through as a country. But as individuals, including my late mother in the grave before she died, could not have also felt the impact of the returned looted funds, and including those who are living today. So how does that translate into improvement in the quality of life of the average Nigerian? And of course, that will not be felt directly, but somehow those who are using it as part of budgeting would know that something has added. But again, if you add something and then something disappears again or continuously on a continuous basis, so it has nothing. It's just like you are adding and then there is a disappearance.
Right.
Of course, there's continuous looting in this country at all levels of government, and so maybe these ones were stashed abroad, and we could talk about it, and so or I could talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the ones that are ongoing? The ones previous governments, maybe that passed, finished, current government, individual, at all levels, not just at the center.
Mm-hmm.
And so looting is a continuous thing, as far as I'm concerned, in Nigeria.
When you say it's a continuous thing, right? When you say it's a continuous thing, what policies have contributed to the prevalence of looted funds in Nigeria? Are there policies in place that you feel could be changed or tweaked to prevent this constant situation from playing out?
There are policies on ground. You have a Money Laundering Act and all of those.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Yeah. And globally, there are checks that there are policies that would not allow you, to move money anyhow. But yeah, people are finding ways of simply moving money out of the country. We are talking about stolen funds now. So are we? All of these funds you are hearing now. Have you heard about those who served in the last government or government before, and the last, or even current? That these funds are, so let them name them and then let's see how. Because people are getting richer, being in government at all levels. Don't get me wrong here. At the local government level, monies are being, continuously shared among stakeholders and those who are running the government. And somebody will ask, is there any evidence? You have, so many things that are wrong in this country. There are good policies of government to checkmate the looting of funds. But probably now, because that you can't even take some kind of cash out of this country or some transfers,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of monitoring here and there. But even at that, so how did these other ones take this money out of this country? There are subtle ways of people, taking monies out of the country, even including, using some international companies, one way or the other, in the word of contract, padding, and then in return, somehow something is being done. And so there are very many ways without directly transferring monies out of this country.
Okay,
and so, yeah.
You mentioned something about the budgets earlier and how these monies that have been repatriated back to the country have been included into the budget, but somehow, the impact is not felt. There's been certain calls for some level of intervention by these international, from these foreign countries, as it were, as opposed to, sending these monies back into the coffers of the Nigerian government. But instead of doing that, carrying out the projects themselves. Do you agree with such a suggestion in order to, curtail or reduce the rate at which these monies are relooted in the country?
It do not make any meaning, Gabriella. Why will the funds? And again, if we are talking about that, those funds that are stashed have been stashed in those countries. Are they returning them with interest? Because these monies have been there,
right?
In a way. And so yielding, monies can't sit without being used for something. Okay? Even if you say, the money is discovered at the time and then kept in certain accounts that are not, except that it is proven that when that happened, and so these monies are started, but the monies were sitting not in the economy of Nigeria, but it was sitting in the economies of those countries. So one way or the other, those monies would have yielded more money, into the economy. And so even if they are helping us in a way, we are not believing that they are helping us to bring the money because of these ones have been discovered.
Right.
Gabriella, there are many funds that have been looted from these countries, more than 80% that cannot be traced in any way. And even when they have decided to return them to us here, and then you want them to, because of our corrupt nature, to utilize the money by way of certain projects, implementing certain projects. Then that will also undermine and extend our sovereignty.
All right.
So,
Even if
Prof, we need to go on a quick breather right now. But I would follow through with that thought you've shared when we come back on how we can have a framework that determines what projects we can work with using these funds.
Right after this. Seasons greetings, Nigeria. This is a time for joy, peace, and togetherness. Let's stand united as one people, protecting our homes.
This is Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info. 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 is Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info. This is Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info.
Our problem is about those who are implementing it. Who are those ones making these laws? They are beneficiaries of the corruption that we are talking about in the country. So some of them live, as state governors, commissioners, ministers to the National Assembly, either at the rep level or at the Senate level. They are the ones that you talk about amending the law. We're amending which law? And then you are talking about those who became governors in the past, and then today they are presidents. And so who will send which one from the executive arm of government? And then who is also appointing those who are implementing or who are the anti-graft members of the membership of anti-graft agencies? Who are those ones appointing? Who are those ones also approving this appointment or ratifying this appointment? These things are just going round and round and round, and we are just deceiving ourselves. We are just concentrating about looted funds. How will they be used? Yes, I've told you that they will integrate them into our budgeting system. And of course, when they do so, one way or the other, people are also taking them in country. We have seen those in high political offices who have been flaunting the monies that they cannot account for, that you cannot. Gabriella, you can say today that you work for Nigeria Info. I don't know where else you may have worked, but people can trace where you have labored all these years. And so trace your growth, in case of anything. People can trace. But there are people in this country that from when they left school till today, they've not done any other thing in life. And you are seeing their investment huge in this country. They are not outside Nigeria. They are here. And they are flaunting whatever they are doing.
So is there a solution to this, really?
What is the solution? We are in a cyclic situation. Those who are in power have continuously used the instruments of the anti-graft agencies in a bid to curtailing how much that is being stolen in this country, whether in the country or out of the country. And then selective investigation and all of those, happen. So when these selective investigations happen, of course, of political consideration, there are people who are going about, who may have served as former governors, who are working with the center today, and we know clearly that they didn't work anywhere.
Prof, here is something.
Yes?
I'd like to come in here. We already know what the problems are. You've been able to highlight some of these concerns and issues that we face as a country in terms of being accountable to some of these funds being brought back to the country. But the agreement, which was recently signed, also includes a clause that ensures that the returned assets are applied directly to developmental projects, which is a question I asked you earlier. And as agreed, $50 million of these funds will be utilized through the World Bank to partly fund the rural electrification project, which will go on to increase reliability and availability of renewable energy in Nigeria. While the balance of the $2.88 million will be disbursed as a grant by Nigeria to the International Institute for Justice to support the rule of law and counter-terrorism project through the counter-terrorism capacity building for criminal justice sector practitioners in East, West, and North Africa. So they've been able to give a breakdown as to how these funds would follow. And through the World Bank, it would be used to fund a project, which is, a concern that Gabriella shared earlier, wherein a third party handling these funds to the completion of a particular project. So now Nigerians know what to look out for, what to ask questions on, how to keep our leaders accountable. But in just being certain, beyond that, do you feel like there are other measures and proactive steps that can be taken to prevent the looting of public funds in the future? If you say we have these policies in place, these laws are in place, but people are still finding ways to circumvent them and go around constant looting and relooting. How can we prevent this from happening so we don't have this reoccurring issue wherein we lose our resources to foreign countries and then maybe never getting these monies back?
My own solution to the problem, the measure, will appear very Herculean and very radical. And that may not be what you may be interested as, or we may be interested as Nigerians. First of all, we need to go back to the drawing board. How we talk about sovereignty belonging to the people. Sovereignty being domiciled within the people. And so sovereignty domiciled within the people means that the people have the right to choose their own political leaders without any interference. The people have the right to also recall their leaders without any interference. The people have, the right, to bring their leaders to the point of accountability, holding them accountable for whatever they do. All of those things are indices of democracy. And when you look at the trajectory of democratic governance in Nigeria, you find that, yes, we have democracy in what we call a cultural democracy, a wobbly democracy, a democracy that has not been able to offer the people what the people expect. And so, if during the social contract era, the state of nature, where government was not in existence, and so the whole idea of going into a social contract, away from the state of nature era, was to surrender what Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and all of those, call dangerous freedom, to a set of people who should in turn govern them. And in governing them, they expect that their lives will be secure, their lives will be protected, their properties will be protected,
all right,
and their lives, let me borrow from a class embassy, their lives will be given a meaning that welfare of the people will be paramount. And that's the essence of government. That's the essence of entering into a social contract. And so, because sovereignty belongs to the people. And so, if we want to get it right in this country, we must go back to the drawing board. We must go back to the foundation of the social contract that we usually enter into with those who are in government. If we have the right to choose our leaders, let the right, be expressed by our people, and not manipulating the electoral process in favor of certain persons. And at the end of the day, what will be the outcome? We'll be running in cycles, and we cannot achieve nothing. As far as I'm concerned, if we must go back to the drawing board, if we must get things right in this country, we must, the people must assert themselves within the sovereignty, given to them by the grand norm and excellent law.
All right.
And then to say that we must choose our leaders ourselves, choose those who will think that will protect our lives, those who will think that will come up with policies that will address our problems. But if we don't go back to that point where the people will actually determine who governs them, and where the people will actually, hold their leaders accountable, where the people will demand for transparent governance, we cannot, no matter whatever policies in terms of repatriation, no matter what policies we want to do in terms of World Bank monitoring, nothing monitoring what are we monitoring? Nothing will yield any dividend. As soon as they are applying the money back into the country, is developing wings, even within the country, even outside the country.
All right, Prof. All right. A very a good way to wrap the conversation up. We've been speaking to Professor Kenneth Nweke. He's Professor of Politics and Governance at the Department of Political Science at Ignatius Ajuru University of Education in Port Harcourt. Professor, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a wholesome conversation. To have yourself a lovely, lovely day.
Thank you very much for joining us.
And Happy New Year. Yes,
Happy New Year again.
Thank you. All right. At this time, we'd like to take your reactions. We've been talking about the repatriation of looted funds. Do you agree that these monies coming in as though into a basket, and we're not really seeing the results of it? Do you think the policies that we already have need to be implemented on, and how should they be implemented on? Or do you think perhaps there is yet a different holistic solution to this issue of relooting of looted funds repatriated back into the country. Now is the time to take your reactions. The phone lines are open. We're streaming live on Facebook as well as on YouTube, so you can join us live on there at Nigeria Info Abuja and call in live and on WhatsApp as well. Good morning.
Good morning once again, Gabriella. My name remains Habakar Palen from Gwagwalada.
Welcome.
You could observe from the conclusion of the professor commission, he was so passionate, academician, he was so passionate about his country. If there is any mechanism that apply check and balances on the institution or arms of government, is where corruption started. Those who occupy public office, who check them? Nobody check. They don't check one another. When there's no mechanism that ensure accountability, transparency in governance, so everybody helps himself with the loot. When the loot left the country, who knows?
All right.
Nobody even. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning. Oh dear, we lost that call. Please do all to call back. We do have some comments on WhatsApp.
Yes, we do. And this one right here says repatriation of funds stolen from the country by corrupt people can only be acknowledged as great achievement if the funds are put into proper use. A lot of Abacha, Iberi and other loots have not been justifiably used. Looting from looted funds is a continuous thing in Nigeria. If all these looted funds were properly used, we would never have been looking for loans from other countries, is what Hyginus Ojeba in Abuja says. And I don't think it is necessary to inform the nation about the return of a looted fund because it has always been dead on arrival. On the Abacha loot, the chambers who facilitated some of these was entitled to a chunk as a consultancy fee. There is a serving minister who is a former governor who might have asked for a chunk as well. It seems as though this loot or repatriated funds might be shared, is what Zaza is sharing on WhatsApp.
All right, let's get back to the phone lines. Good morning. Are you there?
Morning.
You see, my name is Justice of Peace.
Oh, we see that. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. I see this repatriation of funds as just made drama in Nigeria. The reason why is because the one piloting the repatriation and those receiving it are equally guilty of the same offense. And when you are guilty of what you are crucifying another person of, you do it silently because you might just like, who knows when my own day will come. And those that they are repatriating their funds, these one receiving it are relative, they are friends with these people. They are friends. Are we not seeing where a court will give an order to frozen someone's account or properties, and it just maybe when that government left, another government came in and said, release back it to them. All these things are made drama. I can tell you most of those funds, in fact, like Abacha, on a day will come, you will hear that all the money collected to Abacha should be returned back to Abacha family. Mark this date.
Okay. All right. Thank you for calling. This will be our final caller. Good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Once again, Bella and Itodo.
You're welcome. 60 seconds.
Ola, Indomitable. I'm calling from Central area now.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
I don't want to belabor this so much. If you ask me, I will recommend martial law in our system. It's often said that when the foundation is faulty, what can the righteous do? When the process, just like the professor said, when the process for electing our leaders is faulty, how do we expect these people to be held accountable? And how do we expect them to behave very rationally in government? They cannot. The present system will not, the kind of democracy operating now will not prevent looting and relooting.
All right,
it's just as simple as that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for keeping the time and sharing your thoughts on that. Well, this conversation underscores how critical transparency, governance, and accountability are in addressing this issue, not just for economic recovery, but also for restoring public trust and fostering national development. And we'll follow through on, the project that has been earmarked for these funds to be pushed into. And hopefully we're able to see results in good time, and the trust that that people have in the government will be, strengthened.
Maybe we get to a point where we no longer need to hope and believe and wait and patiently.
So we just see it.
We just see. I want to say hopefully, but I don't want to use the word hope again. But we need to get to a point where, as Nigerians, we can beat our chest to a certain degree to say, if the government has earmarked so and so for a so and so project, we get to see that project come to light at the stipulated time. It is not rocket science. These projects can be completed because funds are not a problem. We do have the funds. Every year we have budgets for every single project or developmental infrastructural project for the country. And if we're saying these looted funds are going to be earmarked for so and so, it's no brainer to ask for those projects to see the light of day. So looking forward to better days in Nigeria. But well, thank you so much for joining us on the conversation this morning. This is what we get to wrap it up. After this break, we'll come back and have conversations with our guests this morning. Don't go away.
This is Morning Crossfire. This is a sponsored program.
This is Nigeria Info.